Welcome back to my channel, guys. For those of you who are just joining me, I'm Jilly St. John. Feeling a little bit brave this week in that I am recording this in the coffee shop, but I'm sure there's people watching me thinking that I'm really weird or self-involved, but whatever. This week I had the pleasure of going to BBC Radio Ulster to partake in a discussion on Radio Foyle on the Mark Patterson show with stand-in and general lovely guy, Stephen McAuley, about the topic of body image. For those of you who do follow me, you know that this is a subject quite close to my heart. I've been working on weight regaining and trying to sort of promote being comfortable in your own body shape, no matter what that is provided that you're healthy and eating well. Since the interview, I have become aware of a really common theme, particularly with the women, because the guys don't tend to speak up so much, of healthy eating and thinking that that might be, you know, just having a smoothie or something for lunch, something really quite basic, but that's not what being healthy is. Healthy is eating the right food and the right amounts of it and being a decent enough weight to partake in physical activities and your general sort of daily life. So please do remember that when you are being healthy. This is an episode that requires very little of my attendance, as it's all the radio interview. Anyway, on with the show. Hope you enjoy it and find it useful, and thanks for coming back.
Now, yesterday on the show, we heard how eating disorders are becoming an epidemic here. The Eating Disorders Association was talking to us about body image and the lengths some people go to in the pursuit of perfection. Well, that struck a chord with one local woman. Model and singer Jilly St. John is a recovering anorexic, and she joins me now on the programme. Jilly, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Jilly, tell us your story.
I guess my story goes back quite a long way. I think I first sort of discovered that I had an issue maybe in my early 20s. Now, I would like to say that at this point that the anorexia itself wasn't directly related to body image. I never at any point thought that I was, you know, overweight or anything like that. It was very much stress and anxiety related. And I think I've had, you know, sort of 2 or 3 relapses over the years, most recently being this year, where I got down to sort of 41 kilograms. Again, stress related. But the body image side of it then came from being so slight. I was always very aware that I didn't look like a woman of my age. You know, and I would have been quite self-conscious about that and maybe sort of would do ridiculous things to try and hide it. Like I owned, and I've talked about this actually in a couple of my pages, I owned at one point a pair of padded pants like the drag queens have, which I would wear on stage to try and sort of hide the fact that I maybe wasn't as curvaceous as I should be. Padded bras, the works. And yeah, I'm just sort of coming out of that now, maybe in the last sort of 3 to 4 months. So I've put on a few kilograms and that's going up each week, and I'm just sort of monitoring that at the moment.
When it first started, how did you become aware that there was a problem?
I think I had just moved to Belfast at the time and had been living on my own and was working a great deal to try and afford obviously where I was living. And I think I was walking to work at one point and became just unimaginably breathless. I needed to sit down. I couldn't walk sort of more than a few hundred metres without needing a rest. And I actually thought that I had maybe some sort of lung issue or something like that. Went to the doctor and was weighed, and I think that's the lowest body weight I've ever had. I was right down to sort of 5 stone at the age of about 23. And so that's how I became initially aware of the issue. But looking back, you know, I think in my late teens, a couple of friends would have said to me on occasion, you know, you look extremely ill. I think at one point I was living on fresh smoothies and one meal sort of in the evening, but I didn't think anything of it at all at the time. It was friends had gone to university and come back and, you know, said that I physically looked quite gaunt. but I guess because I wasn't aware of my issue at that point, I just sort of was like, oh, right, I better do something about this, and started to sort of up my intake, unaware that I'd actually had an issue until then. But yeah, I think when I realised that it was becoming a recurring theme, sort of on and off over the years, it led me to sort of think, right, this is actually something that's happening. And I think I came to that point maybe at about 2.5 years ago, which is when I managed to get the help that I need, and I've been in therapy actually ever since for it now. So,
and when you realised that there was a problem, did you then begin to analyse things like your food intake and that kind of
absolutely stuff? I'm entirely obsessed with it now, and not in the way that a typical anorexic, I guess, would be, in the sense that you're trying to control how many calories you're having in. I'm constantly counting everything to make sure that I have more than enough going in. And yeah, I do sort of find myself shopping for things with the most calorific intake in them. I'm sort of like an inverse anorexic, because I do want to be better. As I say, for years I never realised that it was an issue at all. And I do sort of enjoy having a little bit more weight on me. I feel a bit more confident in myself, and I think that that's probably why I come here today, because whenever I talk about these things online, there's people would maybe mail me privately to tell me their stories and how I sort of help with that. And I guess, through being here, I just want people to realise that the physicalities actually of how you look really aren't that important at all, as long as you're healthy and you're a good person. I always think that beauty comes from inside, and I think people should just be a wee bit more accepting of themselves and others as well.
You've been amazingly brave online in terms of the stuff that you've put up about what you've gone through. How difficult was it for you to seek the help that you needed?
For me personally, I didn't find it difficult to admit at all. I felt quite ill at the time, and I would like to be around for a few years longer, and so it kind of frightened me a little bit, and I was like, I absolutely have to do something about this. So I don't think admitting to myself or approaching for the help that I needed was the difficult part. I think actually reprogramming your body and your brain to want to eat, the acceptable amounts of food is probably the most difficult part of it. But I do understand that for others that process is quite difficult, just admitting to themselves even, never mind anyone else. But I would absolutely urge anybody that's concerned with it to speak to somebody about it, be it a friend or a doctor or whatever. It's absolutely the best thing that you can do.
I mean, you're a beautiful woman, you're a model. Most people looking at you would say, how could she possibly have an issue with body image?
Yeah, it's funny that I no matter how many times I hear it, I'm very accepting of how others view me. I don't see myself as beautiful. If I get booked for a shoot, I usually look at it because I'm a performer and because I can give what they need in front of a camera. So it's more about performance than the physicalities of me. But I don't think that that's entirely abnormal either. I think that we're all our own worst critics. And again, it's just about accepting what you look like. I don't wake up in the morning and think, God, today's great, look at me. I think absolutely the opposite, but I'm accepting of this is who I am. I have to accept it, otherwise what is life?
But it must be a difficult environment to be in if you do have issues to do with body image, to be in the world of modelling where so much attention is on you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's about the performance thing of it. In that industry, when you look at people and you see how beautiful they are, like everybody does, I think you wish, gosh, I wish that I was, 6 foot tall or had their body or their hair or their face. But I kind of tend to do that on a daily basis anyway, to people in the street. So I guess you just become accustomed to seeing, pretty people. I think particularly social media has maybe numbed that side of things for me. On a daily basis, I'm, seeing these images of beautiful people all of the time. And I did for a while sort of, become quite introverted with that and compare myself, with those people. And, sometimes it would make me feel so bad that I didn't want to get dressed or anything. But you have to realise that none of that's real. It's all makeup and hairdressers and photoshops and, and we can all present a really good side of ourselves. Like, we can all scrub up, as they say. So I think it's just about realising, what's real and what's not.
And what helps you with that daily realisation?
There's a few things. I sort of have come to maybe put on rose-tinted lenses, I guess, blocking out, particular feeds or things, that make me feel bad, being active within myself, doing things that I feel that I'm improving at or doing well within myself. For instance, I attend John Bell's yoga class over in the Waterside, and I absolutely adore it, and I see myself improving on a weekly or monthly basis with that, and that makes me feel better, like I have something of my own to give. So yeah, I think just focusing on what you're good at and the good parts of your personality or how you look is absolutely the best way to treat, be able to see yourself alongside all of these other people as opposed to beneath or, like they're somewhere else, like they're all human beings.
And I suppose music must play an important part in all that too, because anybody who's seen you performing live usually describes you as a force of nature, as a frontwoman, So presumably there must be something in that which is about release and about expression and about dealing with these things too.
Absolutely. I never feel as good as I do when I'm on stage. I absolutely live for it. It's like the person that I want to be comes out. I can't see myself. I'm not looking in a mirror, or, you're blinded by lights. You don't really see people looking at you or anything. And you just get to close your eyes and immerse yourself in what you're doing. And I think actually that's how I ended up becoming public about my own personal journey was through a release that we had sort of last year or so called Creep. And with the proceeds of it going to the Beacon for mental health, that song was about my anorexia and about my own mental health issues and sort of putting them out there, because if they're out there then they no longer own you or control you. You're not defined by them within yourself. And I guess I was interviewed about that and asked what the song was about, and I thought I should probably lead by example, and then just sort of said, that was what it was about. So for me, it's absolutely a release and a way of expressing and removing things from myself,
Is the kind of projection of beauty in, social media, magazines, music videos, all that kind of thing, is that a problem? Do you see that as being a problem for young women, young men as well?
Absolutely. And yeah, you mentioned young men there as well. I think that, young guys get such a hard time of it. I think there's a lot of awareness surrounding sort of eating disorders or mental health issues surrounding body image for girls. It's very much viewed as a female disease or issue. And actually I've known of a few young guys who have come up through their teens just through music or whatever, and they have a really hard time of it as well, and I think they're equally as affected by it as young women, and they don't tend to talk about it in the way that girls would, and I know that we're very talkative by nature anyway as females, but I mean just in the sense of like admitting that they have issues with themselves, or I think that there could be a lot more to be done about that actually for the boys. But I do think that it's absolutely a hindrance to young people growing up with confidence in themselves and how they look. And perhaps maybe something that could be introduced on an educational level, wherein, maybe people are taken through the processes of how these things are achieved, that those people are absolutely normal in the same way. They all have skin issues or need a hair dye or, all these things. It's not real. And I think probably if that can be sort of presented as being not real, then it might be easier for people to accept that they don't look like that.
Where are things with you now?
At the moment, I am, as I mentioned, in recovery. So I sort of am regaining weight on a weekly basis. And I still have bad days, I think. I don't think that you ever really, the word recovery is bandied around quite a bit. I don't think you ever really recover from any mental health issue. I think it's something that you learn to live with. And again, about acceptance. So I'm just sort of trying to get myself to a healthy place. I'm doing yoga, I'm writing, I'm doing things like this. I have a website coming. So I'm just doing all these things that make me sort of feel positive and allow me maybe to help other people who've experienced something similar to myself. And just get on with it and be accepting of who I am. And actually, I'm not defined by how I look. I'm defined by my actions and how I treat others and how I go about my daily life. So I'd prefer to be defined by that.
Well, I think it's really important that we have these kind of discussions, that we bring this out into the open and that people feel okay talking about them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Jilly, thank you so much for coming on and making that possible today.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, if you've been affected by anything that myself and Jilly have been discussing over the last 15 minutes, help is available. You can call the Eating Disorders Association Northern Ireland on 028 90 23 5959. That number again, 028 90 23 5959.